So we're coming to the close of this pre-scene analysis, and what we have now are some articles taken from various news sources. And what we have first is this story on reality TV pushing contestants too far. And we have this contestant, this participant, who comes from Star Maker, one of Evestar's shows. Troubled celebrity Charmaine Allen was rushed to hospital last night suffering from the effects of an overdose of prescription medicines. So we're starting to see the ethical issues being raised again. Are these people prepared for the limelight? They're coming in as eager participants looking for their big break. As I said before, some are being ridiculed openly by the judges. There's huge pressure on them, and it seems now that the press is picking up on this, they're asking the question, are these people being pushed too far? So we're told that Charmaine rose to fame on Star Maker. As I said, it's Evestar's, one of Evestar's shows. And lots of stories about her private life started to appear in the press halfway through that series. And she withdrew from the program final at the very last minute, even though she was expected to win. So quite interesting to reflect on this. Is it a coincidence that halfway through the series all these stories about her private life started to appear? We remember that Denny is someone with lots of contacts in the press. He's got a lot of influence and holds a lot of sway with the editors of these newspapers, of course. No publicity is bad publicity for a guy like Denny. It's very unlikely, it seems to me, that he would have been unaware of such stories in advance of their release. So was Denny okay with all of these private stories coming out? And even worse, was he actually behind some of these stories going to press, trying to generate lots of attention for his star? Charmaine then signed a recording contract with Denny White's How Music. What a coincidence. Immediately after she quit. So she gained all of this publicity with the release of all these private stories, stories about her private life in the press. She quits before the final, creating all of this stir and buzz, and immediately signs with Denny White's How Music. And here we have the conflict of interest question come back. Denny is someone with a lot of influence and holds a lot of sway in two large companies. Is he acting in his own best interests rather than the interests of the companies and the shareholders he's meant to represent? And her debut album quickly became a bestseller. So Denny hasn't lost his touch in identifying future stars with mass appeal. And then at the end we're told that the agent for Charmaine has reassured the fans that she's expected to make a full recovery, speedy recovery, and that none of her shows are going to be cancelled at all. Is she being rushed back into performance? Is that the right thing to do? Again, it comes back to, a duty of care to these people. It seems to be absent. Also, if you think about the CIMA Code of Ethics, with the release of all of those private stories about Charmaine's life, you think of the aspect of that Code of Ethics that relates to confidentiality, and that certainly seems to be breached here. The next story then is taken from the Financial Daily News, and it talks about the profitability and the declining profitability of Evestar in 2016. We've seen the financial statements, we've talked about that, and it says the publication of the results resulted in a share price fall, another one of 6.5%. So we've had all of that volatility throughout 2016, and it doesn't look like stopping in 2017. And what the company's board has done is released this statement. So that's That's a positive that they're communicating with the investment community, but what they say is not entirely convincing. We've commented on this when we were looking at the financial statement. They say there are factors that led to this one-off decline. The 2016 Olympic Games stole a lot of audience. They're enormously popular shows. Anything related to sports is going to steal audience share from a lot of other programs. So that reduced the potential viewing figures for Evestar's programs, it says. And so they're saying that 2016 was really a very bad year, and 2015 was particularly favourable. But what we saw in the financial statements, when you look at the percentage changes year to year, is that 2015 really wasn't any different to previous years in terms of the percentage increases we saw in profits and revenues and things. So it's simply not true. And it seems to me that maybe Evestar is trying to mislead the investment community. And then we saw that there's a mixed reaction to the fact also that Evestar is maintaining its dividends. We've seen that it's paying out all of its profits to the same shareholders year upon year. It's not reinvesting in the firm. No, they've had no new shows in the last 3 years. This is a company in need of some fresh ideas. And then the last point, the company has argued that it had little need of fresh equity because it exploited internally generated intellectual property. And what we saw on the balance sheet was that, in fact, intellectual property in the form of intangibles, new program development ideas, that's been in decline. They do need to renew and invest more to guarantee their future profitability. They're not doing so, and it seems to me they're trying to mislead the investment community too. A little bit worrying. The next article then, shortly after the first one, talks about a downgrade in the bond rating for Evestar. This is a highly indebted firm, and here we have one of the rating agencies reducing the rating on Evestar's bonds to junk status. And the reasons for this downgrade are listed here. Sustainability of the business has been questioned because of increased competition. And there's also a refusal to issue new equity. We saw that there are no new shares being issued over the last 4 years. What's going on here? Is this Denny White perhaps unwilling to let outside interests into the company? Is he unwilling to dilute his own holding? It seems that way. The 6.5% decrease in the profits, which was referred to in the previous article, is also not helping. And again, Evestar comes out with this excuse about 2015 being really favourable, and this decline in 2016 is just illusory, but it's simply not true. So the bond downgrade, a downgrade like this tends to be related to worries about likely defaults, concerns about the cash position of the company, falling revenues and falling profits, and a general deterioration in the outlook and business prospects of the company. And certainly Evestar seems to tick a lot of these boxes. Definitely the cash position is worrying. There is a fall in the level of revenue growth, certainly, and there's a fall in profits, and maybe there is a deteriorating outlook with more competitive forces coming to bear. There are many barriers to entry have been lowered significantly by technological advances in recent years. Anyone can go and make a reality TV show with a couple of cameras now, and that offers a big threat to a company like Evestar, which is in the game of higher quality productions. seems there's no more scope to take on any more debt. So really they have to turn to equity to inject some fresh funding